Tammy Terrell and Marvin Gaye. I love Marvin Gaye. He's gorgeous. He gets very, soothing.
Thought it might be the Whoopi Goldberg version.
I should look for
Sister
that,
Act,
actually.
yeah.
So we're talking all things weight loss
Yes.
and detoxes and things to help people get over the Christmas period.
That's
and all
right.
that consumption.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the last few years, last year I didn't because I'd injured my foot, but pretty much for about 8 years, every January I tend to do a round of HCG. So HCG, for those who haven't heard of it, and for those who have, this will just reignite your passion for it. So HCG is the pregnancy hormone. And going back 40 to 70 years ago, a guy called Dr. Simeons discovered an interesting thing with HCG, which is the pregnancy hormone. So what he found was that in countries like Africa and India, where there was a lot of starvation, he found that women would still give birth to big, fat, healthy babies. And he thought, well, how the heck is that happening when they are not eating enough to create these big, fat, well, maybe the kids weren't healthy, but they were fat.
Yeah.
So what they found was that the HCG hormone lays down a particular type of fat called brown fat. Now, if we are climbing Mount Everest and we are starving to death and freezing to death, we want brown fat in our body. It's thermogenic, it creates heat, it hides in and around the organs and the heart and the kidneys and the liver. And it stores nutrition. So during times of stress again, the body will steal nutrition from your bloodstream and it will lay it down in brown fat around your major organs. So it's basically sequestering it like squirrels, hiding it in that jolly tree trunk so that you cannot get a hold of it all day, every day. Now, the problem with it is that it's really hard to get rid of that brown fat. So over Christmas, if you didn't have a stressful time, it's not likely to be brown fat you laid down. It's going to be normal fat on the outside of the body that exercise and, doing some intermittent fasting or something will probably shift in a few weeks. But if you had stress at the same time and you laid it down in your brown fat's a bugger to move. Now, this HCG process he developed, he spent 40 years developing this, or 30 years developing this process too, by the way, and he died 44 years ago. So, it's an old process now, but medically they were using HCG injections, so the pregnancy hormone injections, under the tongue, and that was how Dr. Simeons did it for 20 years. And then he looked at different numbers of calories that you needed at the same time to stimulate the brown fat release. Now, a lot of people, as we get older, you sort of go, okay, well, I have to, I was 50 kilos at this age and 55 at this age and 60 at this age and now I'm 70 or, whatever. We feel thicker as we get older. Part of that thickness that we get as we get older is the brown fat laying down in and around our organs. So the way that, and what's really cool about the way he discovered how it worked is that it works on the hypothalamus in the brain. So the hypothalamus, the pineal gland and the pituitary gland all work together to do everything in our body. They are the hormone producers and masters and control panels in our jolly bodies. So the HCG works specifically on the hypothalamus. When we're pregnant, it's designed to lay down brown fat because we need to protect our organs and everything and to protect our bubbies. So it's very much a survival thing when we're creating a human being. When we use the HCG, so we use homeopathic drops, which are much safer, you can imagine, than the synthetic hormones. So the homeopathic drops stimulate the hypothalamus in the brain, and then coupled with, and this is scary, a 500-calorie diet, you actually have no appetite because your hypothalamus is releasing about 1,500 to 2,000 calories per day of brown fat. So therefore, we're really running on, most people run on about 2,000 calories a day during the HCG process. So if they're hungry, it's usually because that fat also stores stuff like insulin, which is fat storing and makes us hungry, or it releases heavy metals. So then our body actually wants us to create fat to store the heavy metals. So if we're hungry on it, it's often because we've got to reduce the inflammation, we've got to reduce the toxicity, but that's where, working with a naturopath to work out what you need during it is important. Once again, in Dr. Simeons, he wrote a book called Pounds and Inches, and you can find it on the internet, it's free everywhere. And basically, Pounds and Inches, he wrote it for other doctors so that they would understand this process. And he worked in Italy, I think, for 20 years, the last 20 years of his life, and had had a clinic set up specifically for weight loss, and he found that 500 calories, he started with 1,000, he was trying to be kind, but he just didn't get consistent weight loss where people were losing the brown fat, because once again, you can lose white fat and you can lose the fat in your joints pretty easily if we start to exercise and lower our calories, but it's the brown fat that's the dangerous stuff. The brown fat, because it's thermogenic and it's creating heat, that heat is also inflammatory.
Yeah. So a lot of people probably find it confusing too that they might eat, like not really eat a great deal.
Yes.
They might be quite active,
Yes.
but still really not losing any weight. So we might just quickly go to a break. We'll come back and quickly touch on that, because you would be a perfect person for them to go and talk to.
Absolutely.
And ways to balance things out. So this is, like it's a great conversation. Like this is, good information for people to have, especially after Christmas.
Oh yeah.
I'm taking it all in. Right now, we're going to be listening to a little bit of YouTube.
Nice.
Still haven't found what I'm looking for, but I have a new Madonna. Got some great info. This is Bay FM 100.3. It's now 20 minutes to 12.